What's up, everybody? Today we are going to be doing an interview with the Marvel brand team. If you guys would like to introduce yourself real quick before we get going here.
All right, I'll start. Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm with marketing.
Yo, I'm Dan. I'm in also with Ryan in marketing.
And Dwight, not with Ryan or Dan, but in design.
Nice. Okay. So I do have 5 questions listed out here. We're going to go ahead and jump right into them. I think my first question is, will you guys ever consider utilizing articulation or styles from partner lines like G.I. Joe Classified or Power Rangers?
Actually, we do use what the other teams create kind of as a compare and contrast with the Legends. There are some things that they've done over the last couple of years that we have tried to incorporate. Some of it was with the new neck that we're using on some of our figures, and that was from where was that? I can't recall off the top of my head, but yes, we do, because Lenny and the Joe team is, well, when we were in the office was just 5 or 6 office spaces away from me, so we were always bouncing ideas off of each other. And some of our sculpting partners are right around the corner as well, who also work on Power Rangers as well as GI Joe. So we do try to make sure that whenever one of us comes up with something clever and unique, that we look at it and see if it can be applied or if it should be applied to our brands. Vice versa, borrow, beg, and steal from each other to make sure that we're all staying on top of the trends and the technologies, and making sure that we don't fall behind.
Nice, nice. So are there certain things that happen in the other lines that can't necessarily translate over to Marvel Legends, like certain articulation points and things like that?
There's, I guess there's some. I guess sometimes it comes down to cost.
Oh, okay.
Brands like our own brands like GI Joe work on a different royalty structure than we have. So there are definitely some limitations that go along with developing a line like this that has those other royalties that go along to Marvel and Disney. So that does it's things we have to consider. We just can't throw everything in the kitchen sink into every figure, or it'll blow our profit structure out of the water. So we have to make sure that we're putting the right things into each item. And when we don't put something in, there's usually a reason behind it. It's not because we, chose to take it out. It was because we couldn't afford to put it in here in lieu of something else that we added. So there's kind of a balance between articulation, accessories, deco, all of those things across every figure that we have to kind of figure out in a big chart. Ryan and Dan and I work on this master Excel document that has the whole year mapped out. Like, we're already mapping out 2022. And we have to kind of, I would say, what, guys, the first 6 months is relatively pretty set, but the second half of the year is still very blue sky. So we're trying to figure all that stuff out, and that's how far out we have to think, so we can make sure we can create and afford to create all these awesome figures for you guys.
Yeah, and I think to keep in mind too is that those lines, Power Rangers and GI Joe and Ghostbusters to some extent too, but like they're very new. They kind of had the benefit to launch from the ground up, whereas Marvel Legends has basically been with the company for since the mid 2000s. And then if you kind of look at what is the start of kind of the modern era for Marvel Legends around 2014, we have a system that is still our core foundation. Dwight and the guys add new bits like every year, but they're incremental, so it's not like a wide scale overhaul. So I think there's certainly learnings both ways. We see cool things that Power Rangers and Joe teams do, and if Dwight and the team can put them in, they will here and there. But on the flip side too, not to toot our own horn, but like together with Black Series, Star Wars Legends, we kind of pioneered things like the photoreal, the face printing process for actual actors, and now that's something that Power Rangers and Ghostbusters can just pick right up and run with it. So everyone just kind of shares those best practices back and forth. Yeah.
Nice.
The Pinless Arms, that's another one that we let off with on the Marvel team. So those types of things, we're always,
Yes, speaking about the pinless arms, before I move on to the next question here, why is it that sometimes on some figures you'll have pinless arms like on the elbows but not the knees? Like, why is it half and half sometimes?
Very good question. Sometimes it's due to existing parts that we're using. So sometimes there are existing bits and pieces that we're using from figures that already existed. So when we'll make the new arms, they work. On some of the new figures that have it half and half, it's still a new process for us. So we're still working with our vendor, and we want to be respectful of what they tell us that they can do, and we're always going to be pushing them. But in some cases, because the way that they are assembled, that there are textures that would be lost in the process, depending on how they want to have the pieces released from the mold.
Okay.
So in order to protect the textures and the details and the sculpt shapes and patterns, we require the parts to be broken in different aspects. Like an arm, which is pretty smooth, it's easy to do it because there's nothing that's going to be lost on the front and back of the arm.
Right.
But on characters that have crazy knee pads or weird eccentric textures, some of that detail. So it's kind of we're always going to be pushing and try to figure out new ways to accomplish those things. But that's why you see sometimes it on the arms and not the legs, or sometimes on the legs and not the arms.
Yeah. I was just checking out Deadpool, who has the pinless thing on the arms but not the legs. You know, it's like so close to. I mean, I don't want to say import quality, but when it has those kind of things, it almost feels like an import figure. You know.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And honestly, there's also sometimes that we don't understand either, and we go back after the fact to have those conversations with our vendors and our partners in HFE to figure out why they did something one way and not the other, because they stay pretty lock and step with us throughout the process. But every once in a while, you think something was going to be different, and then for some reason it changed at the last stage, and you didn't see it until you got a sample in hand, and you're like, well, why is that this way now? And then we get on email or on a conference call and kind of have discussions to figure out what happened over there and what changed.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, so my second question is, what's the process for character selection and body mold uses? Like you choose, like you have a process for picking the characters, right? And then how do you decide which body to use for that specific character?
I think there's like 4 or 5 of us on the team that really love and have read a lot of the comics as well. Sorry about all the banging.
Yeah.
So with the I feel like I'm gonna fall through my floor. That's another thing, if I escape because I get my name called, or if the ground collapses on me, I'll try to stay with you guys. So when the 4 or 5 of us get together, we kind of try to figure out what bodies we want to use for what character, depending on their size and body shape. And then we have to look, once we decide we want to use these 5 or 6 bodies, then we have to look at where else are those bodies being used in the line at the same time. And if they're already being used in other places, sometimes we have to go to sometimes we'll move this character to a later part in the year. And if we can't do that, then we have to look at what is the next best option for the body, because we have a certain amount of tooling capacity for each character, and we have to make sure that we can get our quantities up to a high enough point to ship them everywhere. And if we're using the same body in too many places, then we can't do that. So we always have an ideal, but sometimes we can't always use the ideal.
Okay. I think that's a really valid point, Dwight, and I just want to add on, because we always want to put as much love as possible into each figure, but we need to plan out an entire year, which is over 100 figures, you know what I mean? And so there are a lot of sometimes constraints sometimes, like Dwight was saying. So I know when a person reviews one figure, they're just saying, why can't they put this or this or this? And it's we have to look at it from over 100 plus figures, you know what I mean?
Right.
We would love to do that, but like Jay-Z said, we're business, man. You know what I mean? So it's we gotta work it through.
You had to bring up a Jay-Z reference.
This is also a way crazier year than normal. Our schedules on when things were supposed to ship have constantly evolved throughout the ever-changing world we live in, and that has piled some things on top of each other and stretched other things out. So this has been a much crazier than normal year as far as sometimes our stuff makes it out there at a nice even pace throughout the year, and then sometimes you guys get hit with, oh my God, my wallet is going to die, or my significant other is going to leave me if I buy another wave of toys this month. So all of that is this giant shuffle that we do our best, but this year in particular has been absolutely insane because we just keep making the stuff, and we assume that at some point it's going to make it out there because none of us know anything right now.
Yeah, no, it's been pretty crazy on this end as well. Every time you turn around, like the recent wave, the Joe Fixit wave, you guys announced it 2 days later, it was popping up in stores. Okay, so for question number 3, how big of an impact do information leaks have on release schedules and reveals, and just the overall excitement you guys have when you guys do your reveals and your lives and things like that?
All right, so Dan has thoughts on this too, but I think I'll just say, first off, we love the passion of fans. The fact that it's kind of like sports or something that it's like a 24-hour news cycle where any kind of information gets immediately shared. I think we do appreciate that fans worldwide are so eager for the newest news and reveals, because that kind of excitement and dedication to the line is what keeps it going. So that's the positive spin on it. I mean, of course, when we do a live stream and then the wave was leaked a few hours before, that kind of disrupts our marketing plan a little bit, but we try to just roll with it and try to strive that balance of pulsing out news throughout the year to kind of capitalize on different things like pre-orders and just kind of generalized excitement, because it's the whole immediate gratification, spoilers when it comes to movies or other things you collect. I like Magic the Gathering, and there's the whole Magic the Gathering spoiler culture there. And will I check out spoilers? If they pop in my feed, yeah, maybe, probably, but that's just because I'm interested in it. So I know where that's coming from, but we try to give everyone as much kind of breathing room as possible. And Dan can speak a little bit more to this topic too.
Yeah, I mean, Unparalleled, man. I don't want to curse, so I can't say anything that I want to say. But
well, you can if you're allowed. I don't know the rules on your end, but you can say whatever the fuck you want. Go for it.
Say, honestly, we put a lot of time and effort into making these live streams try to have energy and things of that nature. And honestly, if we see a leak, we're gonna see a leak, and then it's gonna drain some of our energy. Ryan, Dwight, they're really good at keeping that energy. But for me, personally, when I see a leak, it drains stuff out of me. You know what I mean? So I'm just I get really agitated and annoyed. And people don't understand, but leaks also do have long-term impacts of relationships and things of that nature too. So I'm with Ryan in that I understand that there is passion, and we don't want the opposite problem where nobody wants legends, you know what I mean? So it's a good thing. But yeah, it does drain our energy sometimes, man. It kind of sucks sometimes.
Yeah, no,
I understand, and there's only love,
Yeah, no, I understand. Sometimes I kind of feel bad, when a Thursday morning or a Thursday afternoon, a bunch of new Marvel Legends pictures pop up, and then you guys have your lives on Fridays, and you guys are like, well, see, here's this that you guys saw yesterday. And then people walk away disappointed, but it's not your guys' fault. You had a plan that kind of got messed up.
I will say that it makes those things happening makes the true reveals even sweeter for us. So things like HasLab, or things like we teased at PulseCon, like Firestar, because those are earlier on in the process, and we aren't doing pre-orders for those yet, so we know that no one has seen them before. Then we get really jazzed for those opportunities.
So is that what causes most of the leaks? The fact that they're solicited for pre-order? And
sometimes, I mean, when you have pre-order assets floating around out there, kind of like a ticking clock on us.
Right.
When we do those kind of reveals that are not full pre-orders, where we're just showing, maybe one picture, maybe definitely not showing the in-pack image or all the accessories. Those are, we like doing those better, because then we know it's really the first time.
Cool.
I'm older than you guys. I like the era of Toy Fair magazine, when my leaks were provided to me once a month in a magazine form, and I could just kind of go through it and be like, oh, this is all the exciting stuff coming. I'm pre-internet, so it was that was how I liked to get my information. It was nice to get a bound copy of something exciting to dive into every week or every month, and we didn't have to worry about all of this crazy internet gaga.
Yeah, no, there was definitely a magic to Toy Fair magazine. Like, I don't know if you remember, like the top 10 of the month, they would do all kinds of cool stuff in there.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was a lot of fun stuff, fun reading back then.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so for the fourth question, would you guys ever consider stopping Build-A-Figures to up the budget on individual figures and release Build-A-Figures as just deluxe figures? Figure.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I think we've sort of done this already, re-releasing some Build-A-Figures as entire figures, like we did with Venom this past year, Kingpin, things like that. And then on the flip side too, we've done individual figures with more accessories and no Build-A-Figure pieces in these programs.
Oh, right.
So like 10 years, the Marvel 80th, where we had the big three, we had the new Cap, Iron Man, and Thor, who were all, you know, kind of really quintessential versions. And those were outside the Build-A-Figure program. So I think we are already doing that. I don't know that we necessarily go wholesale to that model, because Build-A-Figure is something that Legends kind of started with, and it's been so important. It also does allow us to get larger characters, whether it's a movie character or a comic character, into a wave in another way. So yeah, Dwight, any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I know I think the most recent one we announced was the Thanos, right? That's that would be what would be a Build-A-Figure, and that's 100% new for the deluxe line coming out in the foreseeable future. So, there are going to be those types of deluxe characters that are now getting a hero $30-$40 treatment going forward as a bonus on top of the Build-A-Figure program. I mean, we do waves without Build-As too. We have those awesome vintage retro carded 6-inch figure waves,
yeah,
which fans really seem to be loving. So, I don't think we need to Build-A-Figure in every Legends wave, but I don't think right now there's no plans to walk away from that as a big staple of the line yet either.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I love the idea of the deluxe figures and then putting more money into regular figures, because then you end up, I mean, I'd imagine you'd end up with full waves of figures like this, which, this was an amazing figure. Like, I couldn't believe how awesome this thing was. I was so happy to have this. And, you had this and then, some repaints, and it was obvious that most of the love went to this figure in the wave. And it stood out, it was an amazing figure.
Yeah, that's the one of the magic and the hard challenges of working on a line like this. It becomes daunting in some cases when we have literally hundreds and hundreds of bodies that we can choose from to build figures. That sounds great, but that's also really, really a nightmare to figure out how you puzzle pieces together to make new characters. So when you have the opportunity to do something from scratch, like the Kang that you just held up, it's awesome, because you're like, there's less of a limitations put on you. It's like, I get to build this thing from scratch, so I can put all of the cool textures I would want to put onto a new figure. Same thing with the Deadpool you held up. Oh, another 100% new figure. We were able to put every authentic bit of texturing that we could find and think of in there, because it was meant for that purpose. And Kang is such a weirdo as far as his costumes pieces. I don't see maybe his arms we can use somewhere else, but there's not a lot of reuse for that figure. So it allowed us to go like all in to really try to make something special for him. And without going into the specifics, I can let you know we just kicked off last week a couple more all new villains for future stuff that we'll be talking about, 3 to 6 to 8 months away. So you're going to be getting more characters like Kang as far as all new, unique, characters coming, when we can as well.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, I look forward to seeing that, because Kang was a standout figure, But for the number 5 question, so even though you guys have made like near perfect versions of characters like Captain America, Thor, Spider-Man, do you guys have any intention of revisiting any of those and adding like the pinless joints and, these cool updates that you guys have had lately?
That would be one thing I would definitely like to do. At some point I want to get pinless arms for a Spider-Man, so we can get a true red on the outside, blue on the inside Spider-Man at somewhere. Like if I put those new arms and legs on that new retro carded super articulated Spider-Man, I think you guys would love to, maybe a couple new heads with different eye expressions. I would love to revisit that character at least one more time, with some of those updates to them. And the cool thing is about these characters, even when we've done what you guys consider the definitive version, we always, every artist over the 80 plus years of Marvel has drawn them differently. So there's no reason why when we have the opportunity, we can't revisit those great characters to do a new definitive version of a different era of the character. And you also have to understand that while you, in particular, I know we've seen each other at the cons over the years, it's like there's people like you who have been in this for a long time, but there's also people that are falling in love with Marvel today or just a year ago, and they may not have had the opportunity to get those definitive characters at a mass market price. And I don't want people who are buying into this line as it grows and becomes bigger and more awesome to have to spend $60 for a Captain America. I want them to be able to get it for $20-ish like it was intended to be. So we're always going to be figuring out how we can bring those characters back out in updates, new decos. I think that's one thing that with very few exceptions, when we do revisit those characters, we always want to add some, at least at the minimum, new deco so that they're fresh and different. And if you were someone who bought it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that figure is still special for you and your collection, and it holds, a moniker of its price because we're not just reissuing the same thing. We try to make updates so that it's new and different. That, if you want it, great. If you already got one, that's great too,
Right. Cool. So it sounds like we're kind of out of time here. I'd like to really thank you guys for doing this today, and hopefully in the future we'll have more time to talk back and forth and discuss Marvel Legends. And I just want to tell you guys, I think you guys are doing an awesome job at this point. I know a lot of collectors felt like Hasbro were kind of living in the shadow of Toy Biz and couldn't quite get out of it for many years. But at this point, I think you guys are killing it, and I'm completely happy as a Legends collector,
Awesome. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for everything.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. You guys have a wonderful day.